Well, it had to happen eventually. I only got my copy of Tetsudou-Oh about 3 or 4 months ago, and since it wasn't really a game I was looking forward to, I hadn't played it yet. Today I put it in, and this was the result. I cleaned it, I did all the first aid I could on it. I'm pretty confident that this card is dead. But in a strange twist, I had a second copy. This one was really grimy, and I bought the other one because it was $3 in boxed. So I scrub out those really corroded contacts, pop that one in, and this was the result. A second dead cart. I've gotten 282 episodes into Famidaily without a bad cart, and now I have 2 of them, and they're the same game. Annoyingly, Tetsudou-Oh is also a bit of a rare game. I've only found 2 copies for sale from useful sources, and you might notice that I own 2 copies. But as you might guess from the fact that I paid $3 for a boxed copy, it won't be that expensive to replace, especially now that some Japanese retailers have reopened shipping to the US. But that replacement copy is a minimum of 2 weeks away, and I don't want to get out of order like that because I won't be able to keep track. So let's break out the emulator. If we want to be really technical, Tetsudou-Oh can be directly translated as Railroad King. But really the way it would be used in English is Railway Baron. Tetsudou-Oh is a board game that has the player building a rail empire across Europe. And I'm thinking, great, I love 1830, I love Age of Steam no matter what title it's going under. I even like Crayon Rail games. Tetsudou-Oh is not like any of those. It's the kind of board game that people who don't play board games think board games should be like. The kind of thing that board games have mostly gotten rid of in the past 10 years. But it still persists out there. Tetsudou-Oh is a roll and move game where you buy properties, charge the other players for using them, and there's tons of random events that swing the game. I can actually see the outline of a good board game here. There are a couple of very clever ideas, but the randomness makes playing pointless. Either the dice and cards like you and you'll win, or they'll keep you stuck, unable to do anything, until the game is over. The game comes with this handy rail map of Europe. The red spots are cities, and the blue spots are stations on the lines in between them. There's always 3 stations between cities. The menu that appears on your turn gives you 4 options: roulette, buy a track, sell a track, or view the map. Roulette is basically rolling a 6-sided die to see how far you can move. I'm told that some people got very good at manipulating that roulette to always land on what they need. So after you roll, you move your train that many spots. If you stop on a blue station, then a card gets drawn. The cards always have letters and numbers assigned to them. Basically, A always gives you money, B always has a game effect that's out of your control, C is a coffee break, which means that until your next turn, no one is charged for passing over tracks you own. D is always an event that loses you money. E is always a natural disaster. And F is an opportunity to go gamble at a horse race. If you land directly on one of the cities, you don't draw an event. If you look at the map, you'll see both your position and one of the cities flagged. That flagged city is your goal. When you reach it, you get $50 times the number of stations you passed on your way there. Then it draws another city as your next destination. One of the game-ending events is that someone has traveled to enough of their goal cities. That's 7 times by default. When you land on or pass over a city, it gets marked with your piece. And at the start of the turn, when you choose to buy a track, you can buy track in between any 2 cities that you have marked. Of course, another player passing through that city changes what's marked. And that actually gives Tetsudou-Oh its little bit of strategy. You can maneuver yourself to block somebody off, intentionally preventing them from buying a line, or perhaps buying a line that they're on yourself, if you're in the city when your turn starts up. Buying a line costs 100 per station, and when other players' trains pass across those lines, they pay you 100 per station. It also costs a little bit of money to travel across stations that aren't owned by anyone, so you're getting bled a bit of cash each turn regardless. You're probably only going to want to sell stations when you run out of cash. And when you don't have enough money to move down a track or pay the fees for an event, the game will automatically bring up the sell a track screen. You only get $50 per station, so $150 per track segment, which means selling is a bad idea unless you can't avoid it. If you don't have any more properties you can sell, that's another way that the game can end. Any player going bankrupt stops the game right there. And that's another issue with Tetsudou-Oh. The early game economy is just completely unbalanced. You could have your entire starting cash wiped out in 2 events. And from that point on, you're effectively out of the game. Early on in particular, there's high expenditures and low income. And that's a recipe for a runaway leader. One person gets the right track segments at the right time, and then they can use their wealth to push everyone else around. The AI in Tetsudou-Oh is pretty much brain dead. It just tries to take the shortest path to its goal and buy any track segments that it runs across. So if you can buy up those tracks that it'll run across early on, then you're going to run them out of cash pretty quickly. The only thing that can save the AI are random events killing you. All the tracks in the region getting destroyed, always getting coffee breaks so you don't get any income, getting stuck on broken tracks so you can't move for 3 turns, having to pay to get those broken tracks repaired, getting teleported across the map when you're 1 square away from your goal. The random events aren't fun, and they drain any strategy out of the game. Perhaps the weirdest thing about Tetsudou-Oh is how the trains can run across the English Channel. A train from London to Paris? I think we all know that's impossible. All of the information I could find on Tetsudou-Oh attributed the development to DB Soft. However, 10 years later, there will be a revival of this game, with 2 new games in the series. And both of them were published by Atlus, who in 1987 were developing Famicom games for other publishers. So I find it very likely that Atlus is the actual developer of this one. I mean, why would anybody else have affection for this game? This also isn't the only Famicom board game involving trains we're going to see. Tetsudou-Oh just happened to get to the topic first. So obviously I'm pretty unhappy with Tetsudou-Oh as a board game. It's just not well designed. And yet I'm still going to buy a 3rd copy of it. Eventually I'm going to get a cart that works.